Ink Ribbon.
With the reveal of Resident Evil 2, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, Medieval, Destroy All Humans, and now Final Fantasy VII, it looks like we are in the age of the video game remake. Well, we all have that game from our childhood that we would love to see dripping with glorious 4K HD graphics, but we know that will probably never happen. Or will it? I never thought Resident Evil 2 remake would happen, so never say never, I guess. As for this list, I've put together a list of games from yesteryear that I think would make great remakes in today's gaming world. Now, these are all games that I've played myself, so if there's a game that should be on this list but isn't, it's probably just a game I haven't gotten to play yet. And with that, here is my list of the top 10 games that deserve a remake.
Number 10.
Armymen 3D. Speaking purely from a commercial standpoint, I think this game would be very successful today. We have a lot of kids that are too young to play shooters because of all the blood and violence, but with Armymen 3D, it's nothing but plastic. Problem solved. Demographics aside, this game was so much fun back in the day, and nothing can bring a child joy like using a flamethrower on another soldier and watching him burn as he slowly melts into a pile of plastic. With games like Fortnite, Overwatch, and other family-friendly shooters, this one with some improved gameplay would fit right in.
Number 9.
Dino Park Tycoon. If you were a kid in the 90s, there's a good chance you got to play this game either at home or on a school computer, and man, was it fun. I recently tried finding it because I just assumed that since we had so many Zoo Tycoon games it would have had a successor, but I was surprised that it hasn't resurfaced. There was that Jurassic World Park game, which is probably the closest thing, and I'll admit looks pretty awesome, but that only proves my point. I recently found a website where you could play a whole bunch of 90s games straight from your browser, and I quickly discovered that this game has aged really badly. Like, I literally couldn't even figure out some of the menus. While I don't remember the gameplay too much, I do have very fond memories of playing this when I was excused from PE because I had asthma as a kid. Thanks, asthma.
Number 8.
Fighting Force. Back in the day, I ended up getting this game because of the simple fact that its ad was plastered on the back of the manual for Tomb Raider 2. It may look like a typical beat-em-up, but there's something special about it that I really feel went unappreciated. You had 4 characters to choose from, including Backstreet Boy, Tomboy Girl, Karen, and the Hulk, and each one had their own special gameplay perks. The characters were cool and balanced, well, as balanced as you can be in a game like this. And while the gameplay got repetitive, that was always kind of the point in a beat-em-up game. But what was really cool about this game was the weapons and the environments. You could destroy pretty much everything, and you could pick up almost anything and use it as a weapon. Pipes, tires, guns, rocket launchers. Hell, you could even pick up enemies to use as weapons against other enemies. We need more over-the-top arcade games like these, and more beat-em-ups in general.
Number 7.
Fear Effect. I recently played Fear Effect Sigma on PS4, and while I was watching the cutscenes and getting to see these characters in updated graphics, I got super excited. Until the gameplay began. We went from Resident Evil style angles to, I'm honestly not even sure what genre this is now because I don't play these kinds of games. But it made me realize the potential of the original. Fear Effect was like if Ghost in the Shell, Resident Evil, and The Matrix were all merged into one game, and it's awesome.
Hello, Hannah.
Not too long, Deke. I've killed men for much less.
Right, so...
To be honest, the graphics have actually aged pretty well, since the cel-shaded look always looks good. Coupled with the fact that it was released towards the end of the PS1's life cycle, it still looks great. The gameplay, however, does not. The Achilles heel of Fear Effect is its trial and error gameplay that just leads to you dying over and over and over in a million different ways. With a new code of polygons and updated gameplay, this would be a great classic.
Number 6.
Burnout. I recently got a modded PSP, which I still need to do a video on, but with that I was able to play Burnout Legends, and holy crap is this game fun. And yes, I know we got Burnout Paradise, but it just wasn't the same. Mainly due to the lack of crash mode, but also because an open world thing just doesn't really mesh well with the gameplay in my opinion. Now when it comes to classic Burnout games, I have to say that the game modes are still fun and would only be improved if they were updated. The original had a lot to offer, like classic racing, head-to-head, pursuit, and of course, crash mode. And the crashes in Burnout Paradise emphasize that very well. The slow motion crunching of glass and metal just makes blood rush to all the right places, you know?
Number 5.
Super Mario Land. What? A Nintendo game on Ink Ribbon? The original Game Boy was technically my first game system, and it was the start of my path to being a gamer. Out of all the games I had for my Game Boy, none stand out in my memory like Super Mario Land. Now to clarify, Super Mario Land and Super Mario World are totally different. The music, the power-ups, the enemies, it's honestly a very different experience and worth checking out. I'm not exactly sure why, but the aesthetics of this game give off a very different feel from regular Mario games, but in a good way. And I don't need to tell you that these graphics need an update, but I really do miss this game. And its sequel, The 6 Golden Coins, was pretty rad too.
Number 4.
GTA Vice City. In the mid-2000s, Grand Theft Auto became a bona fide hit series with the release of Vice City. While I'm sure making an online casino is a great way to make money from players, I bet remaking Vice City would make them just as much money, and it wouldn't be banned in 50 countries while slowly ruining Rockstar's reputation. Vice City was a masterpiece. I know a lot of people loved San Andreas, but for me it was all about Vice City. Miami in the 80s really created a great atmosphere and really took you to a whole new world. Unfortunately, the game never really looked great, even when it was new. All the textures made everything look like potatoes, and it's a shame because we would have loved to see the detail that didn't make it in. And if you want a taste of that, there are a handful of small Vice City remake mods out there, but none of them are complete as it is a huge undertaking. But looking at this footage, you can easily see the potential.
Number 3.
Parasite Eve. If you watched my Secrets and Easter Eggs video on Parasite Eve, then you already know how I feel about the story of this game. In that video I mentioned I wanted to buy the book, so I went on Amazon and found out that it cost $500. Now, I don't know if the story is that good, but it's definitely something that can be expanded on and revisited. And we're not counting The Third Birthday as a remake because that game had almost nothing to do with the source material and was an entirely different game. Resident Evil 2 proved that you can do a remake without having to change the plot or sacrifice any of the original aesthetics. And out of all the classic survival horror games, none need a graphical facelift as bad as this game did. Not to mention gameplay improvements. Here, let me illustrate an example. A deeply mature storyline, strongly written characters, and genuinely grotesque monsters. This game really has the potential to be much bigger than it was, especially in the West. Now that Square is remaking Final Fantasy VII, it could lead to this actually happening, so fingers crossed.
Number 2.
Chrono Trigger. Speaking of Square, we also have one of the best RPGs I've ever played, Chrono Trigger. Now I know you guys come to my channel for horror games and maybe you don't care about it, but this game is really, really good. I don't really play games that don't have voice acting in them because it's really hard for me to keep up with the story, but this game had me enthralled. The game has everything going for it. Every character is interesting and useful, the story was very deep and very well written, and the most important part, the gameplay was really good. There was an attempt at a fan remake, but Square Enix quickly used their lawyer summon and put an end to that, which was a bummer. But this is a story that deserves to be experienced by more people who missed out on it.
Number 1.
Police Knots. Some of you have never heard of it, most of you have never played it, but Police Knots is amazing. Maybe it's just that it really speaks directly to my personal taste, but I absolutely couldn't get enough of this game. So there was an era of games released for the PC 98 that were just like this, at least in appearance. It's the #1 source of pretty much every anime vaporwave GIF on the internet. So let me just give you the beginning of the story so you can get a sense of how good it is. You play as Jonathan, who is a police knot, which is a combination of police and astronaut, kind of like space cops. While on a mission, your spacesuit tether breaks and you float off into space. Thankfully, the suit cryogenically freezes him and he is preserved until he returns to Earth and is recovered 24 years later. While he hasn't aged at all, he discovers that his wife, who is now in her 50s, has moved on and remarried, and the world has changed since he was gone. A lot. I won't say any more, but I will say that Meryl from Metal Gear Solid is in the game. And unfortunately, I doubt this will ever get a remake, but the good news is that there's a fan English version of the game you can get online and play via an emulator, so if you haven't played it, now you can. And that is my list of games that I think deserve a remake. Now, I know each of you has at least one game you'd love to see remade, so let me know about it in the comments. If you like this video, then check out my other stuff and feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'm Kai Morgan, and as always, thanks for watching Ink Ribbon. And a very special thank you to my bronze, silver, and gold Patreon supporters. Thanks to you, I can make videos without worrying about demonetization and grow my channel faster.